Constantine said that he received a vision of a cross, and the revelation that he had received in return from that vision, that the vision spoke to him and said, "In this sign, conquer." So Constantine had all of his regiments put a cross on their shield. When Constantine had won the throne and became the emperor of Rome, um, he gave a tolerance for the Christian religion, the Christian faith, to be practiced throughout the Roman Empire. Because at first they were under persecution through former emperors such as Nero. So what happened was, as Christianity started to grow throughout the Roman Empire, it started to spread throughout Europe. They released every nation who had accepted Christ as their religion and faith. They released that European nation one group at a time. At first, they were down in the slave pens and the gladiator pens with us who were from Africa. But those throughout Europe were being released as they accepted Christianity. So the Rome released them from the debt and the tribute that they had paid, and also an agreement that they release all slaves and captives and political prisoners. So what happened was they came to a decision with those who were from Africa, who were still in slavery under the Roman Empire and Roman rule. They came with the last decision. What are we going to do about them? The decision they made was that they said those that were from Africa were different. And if they released everybody from slavery, then who will be left to do the work? So they continued to enforce slavery upon people from North Africa and East Africa, even after the acceptance of Christianity and under Christian rule. Okay, so now you get into American slavery, right? Which we know that is totally different from the slavery that was practiced in Rome. You have George Whitefield, for instance. He has started a revival called the Great Awakening. George Whitefield has a great name in history, but little was told about when the slaves were released in Georgia during the Great Awakening revival. When the Great Awakening revival had ended, George Whitefield went to Georgia, called the church into the congregation, and spoke to them from New Testament scriptures that they continue owning slaves. So it was George Whitefield who was responsible for sending the slaves back to work in Georgia, after those who worked with the abolition of slavery had convinced the church in Georgia to end the practice of slavery in the Christian church. It was George Whitefield who sent Afro-Americans back to work in slavery in Georgia after the Great Awakening revival. Okay, now you have Reverend Colcock Jones. Reverend Colcock Jones came up with a theory that he was convinced that the Bible can completely end slave revolts, because there were numerous different slave revolts throughout the South. Reverend Colcock Jones had a theory which he said that it would be better for Afro-Americans to remain in slavery than to be released from slavery, because they said that before the Afro-Americans were slaves, when they were in their own country of Africa, that they were heathen. They tried to say that they were better off being slaves because in American slavery, they said that the Africans were attending church service and accepting Christianity, that they were no longer running around in their own country as heathen. They tried to describe us as animals. He came out with theories to say that every scripture referring to sin in the Bible, Reverend Colcock Jones said that that is the way that people act in Africa, right? But we know that sin comes from a sinful nature. That's what all men. But he tried to give a description that the sin that the Bible refers to was the way that African people live in Africa. So therefore, that would be better off for them to remain slaves. Okay, now you have the theories where about it on the acceptance of Christianity. This is in early America, when America was first being established. And this is also decision was made during the Roman slavery period era. Okay, they tried to come up with a theory that they knew that slavery was wrong and wicked. So when they seen that it was wrong and cruel, those that were Christians, they tried to come up with a reason to justify it. They tried to say that people from Africa, that we were not human, that we were mutants, that we were half animal, half beast. So they send us to doctors and medical surgeries to check and see, were we human or were we an animal? Because they said that our hair was kinky, our nose were wide, our lips were big, and our color of our skin were dark. So they tried to say that we were somebody different, that we were half ape and half human being, that if they can prove that we were half animal, that they can justify us as in being one of the beasts of the field. Because God said with man that mankind would rule over every beast of the field. So they tried to say that we were not human beings. But the medical doctors in examinations came out and the results said that we were human, that our insides were the same insides of those who were European. So that allowed, under those conditions, we were allowed to accept Christianity. At first, they did not want to give us Christianity or let us accept it because they were scared that Christianity might lead to our freedom. Because we know those under the Roman slavery was not a racial slavery based upon a race base of which color, skin, origin that you were. Wrong, the Roman slavery, everyone together, every nation was a slave, whether he be a criminal or whether he be a war captive, of those who were debtors who owed money or didn't refuse to pay taxes to Rome.